Welcome back. Today, we're doing a deep dive into something really quite fascinating. It's the world of Bobrito Bandito, a Beaver's crime empire. Based on these compelling sources you shared, our aim today is to really get under the surface. Not just the origins and his, ruthless rise, which many might know, but the deeper insights, the surprising facts about this figure, and why he's still going, right? It feels like digging into a hidden history. Some of the descriptions are amazing names whispered between broken teeth and cracked cartoon alleys. You can almost smell the cigar smoke and spilled espresso. It's just gritty, dramatic, and really worth analyzing closely.
Exactly, yeah. For this deep dive, we want to pull out those core insights, the surprising truths, what really drove, what seemed like an ordinary beaver to build this huge criminal empire. What does this story actually tell us? About ambition, maybe, the past, and this weird mix of animal instinct and, organized crime.
Okay, so let's start right at the beginning, the roots. Because the sources say he didn't just, fall into crime. He apparently gnawed his way into it. Came from Tooth Hollow, this place between New York and the Forest District, from a line of honest damn engineers, proper blue collar. But he wanted suits, power, respect. And crucially, revenge. What does that early split from his family tell us about where his ambition started, even in a world like this one?
Well, that's a great question, because it really shows up maybe a classic pattern that deep personal tragedy can just ignite everything. His father, Timber Chiseljaw, Bandito, respected guy, an engineer, he got framed by the Otter Syndicate for illegal lumber trading, corrupt bunch. And then Bobrito's only 12, and his dad just vanishes. Swallowed by the current and a cover-up, as one source puts it. That seems to be the absolute turning point. Everything changed. Bobrito didn't just, walk away from the family business. He actively rejected it, burned blueprints, stole a hat from a dead mobster, and started building his own thing, one tooth at a time. So it highlights a key insight, I think. Sometimes the biggest empires aren't just built on greed. They're built on these really deep personal wounds that haven't healed.
Wow. So by 17, he's not just some kid trying to be tough. He's Don Bobrelli. He's controlling the chew block with this motto. It's simple but clear. If it crunches, it belongs to me. What was so different, or maybe so effective, about his operation back then, compared to the other animal gangs the sources mention?
Right, that's the thing. It wasn't just smashing things up. His network, chewing gum rackets, illegal maple syrup roads, these underground toothpick gambling dens. It shows this almost entrepreneurial kind of ruthlessness. He saw markets nobody else did, maybe, and just dominated them. Sheer will organization. He turned, everyday woodland stuff into power.
Into wealth. It wasn't just about territory. It was about controlling the whole supply chain in a way, the means of consumption in their world.
That's actually quite sophisticated.
Yeah.
And his methods, they became legendary, didn't they? Don Bobrelli to his friends, the wood whisperer to the police, and apparently that trench coat bearer thing to people who got confused, which the sources say he hated because he's very clearly a beaver, but his communication style, also really effective. Didn't talk much, but when he did, it was followed by three things: smoke, the click of his Tommy gun, and someone falling into a puddle of their own shadow. That imagery is incredibly strong. But how literal is that puddle of shadow bit? Is that like a physical thing? Or good question for clarification. No, it's not literal, not physically. It's symbolic. It represents total psychological collapse, utter defeat just from being near him. It speaks volumes of the sheer intimidation he projected. It was a kind of psychological warfare, silent but devastating. That became his signature. He didn't need to actually do anything sometimes. Just his reputation, his presence was enough to, break someone.
Okay. Given that rapid rise, those distinct methods, what came next? What was the big clash for Don Bobrelli, who was his main rival?
Conflict was inevitable, yeah. And that brings us to the Banditelli War. His biggest rivals were the Banditelli family. They were gangster moles, described as loving destruction and dirt. Classic moles, I guess. And their feud kicked off over turf. Simple as that. They said he stole their tunnels. He shot back that they didn't know how to chew right. It was quite an insult in that world, presumably. This blew up into the Sawmill Siege. And get this, the sources say this war lasted for 11 cartoon seasons.
11 seasons. That's epic. Cement getting chewed, exploding trees, and weaponized acorns. Weaponized acorns. That detail really pulls you back into this strange animal setting, doesn't it? What does that tell us about maybe the ingenuity, or maybe just the desperation of these wars? And how did Bobrito actually survive something that long and brutal?
It tells us innovation matters, I think. Even in the underworld, you adapt. Weaponized acorns, chewing cement. It shows how they use their natural traits, their environment for fighting.
But Bobrito, he had something else, this shadow slipping. It's presented as, well, either science or maybe old Beaver witchcraft. The sources aren't entirely clear. But whatever it was, it let him step into someone's shadow, then reappear behind them and deliver this chilling whisper, oi, 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 and then silence. So it's not just physical fighting. It's almost supernatural. It makes him seem terrifying, untouchable, which raises a good question for us, really. How much of his power was skill and how much we're just building this fearsome, almost mythical reputation?
Yeah, it definitely adds this layer of dread. So where does all this leave Bobrito now? His legend is still around, clearly. They say his coat isn't even stitched, but grown from the skin of fallen betrayers, and his gun doesn't shoot bullets, it chews through guilt. These myths, okay, obviously not literal, but they show that fear, that almost supernatural vibe around him, how his legend grew to reflect the, psychological damage he causes. Does his story have an end, or is he still out there?
Yeah, he's very much still out there, not done at all. Still walks the city at night, apparently, smoking in alleys where the rain doesn't even touch the ground, just watching, listening, waiting to cross one last name off his father's ledger. The core mission hasn't changed. Find the last mole and the final lie. He's still hunting for the truth about who really sunk the dam, the event tied to his father's disappearance. It's this relentless search for justice, maybe just vengeance. It basically defines him.
We've certainly covered a lot of ground today with Bobrito Bandito's story, haven't we? From those humble beginnings in Tooth Hollow, the honest family, to his ruthless climb as Don Bobrelli. We've looked at this really potent mix of personal tragedy, sharp ambition, and those strange, almost magical powers he has. His story is such a unique way to look at that blend of, animal instinct and organized crime, how personal drives can just shape an entire underworld.
Exactly. And that brings us to a final thought, something for you, the listener, to chew on maybe. If Bobrito's entire life, his whole existence now, is still driven by that unsolved mystery, his father, the dam, what does this whole deep dive really tell us about how heavy betrayal can be and the length someone might go to for justice? Even in a world with, talking animals and weaponized acorns, what do you think? What's the ultimate truth he's actually looking for? And I wonder, will he ever really find peace?